And in our top story this hour, hundreds of workers have gone on a nationwide strike at the National Health Laboratory Services over unfair working conditions. Workers are protesting against staff shortages and the lack of personal protective equipment, amongst other issues. They also claim that the employer is not complying with occupation health and safety regulations. The union said that it was withdrawing labor in the middle of the pandemic in order to get results from government. Protests began last week Friday at NHL's facilities across the country. The union says pickets will continue throughout the week and culminate in a stay away on Friday. Our SABC News reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa has been following the story. Let us now cross live to her for an update. Mbalenhle, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on SA Today. So take us through what's been happening since this morning.
Good afternoon, Palisa. Yes, indeed. Striking workers did essentially go to the offices of the NHA, the National Health Laboratory Services, to basically bring attention to their plight. They started as early as 8 o'clock this morning to picket outside those offices, and this was not only happening at those offices, I believe it was happening nationwide, but we were at the NHL offices in Sandringham, where we saw around 100 of workers essentially just picketing. And when we got there in the afternoon, just before 11, it seemed as though it was quiet, but workers had gone on a break and came back. And then they were addressed by one of the union representatives, who then informed them that they couldn't really carry on with their picket outside the offices today, but they vowed to come back tomorrow. Essentially, part of the reason why they couldn't continue with the protest today is because the employer has gone ahead and placed an interdict on the strike, and essentially the court yesterday granting the employer a court interdict, and essentially just informing them that the court ruling that the interdict is in place until an outcome from the Essential Services Committee. Now, we know that tomorrow there is going to be a hearing that will determine if the National Health Laboratory Services workers are going to be considered as essential workers, which would then make it difficult for them to go on a complete strike. And essentially, from the conversation I had with the union representatives, they are saying that they will look at other avenues to bring attention to their plight. Some of the demands that they've made is that they would like an 11% wage increase. They also would like the payment of outstanding bonus payments, and they also would like to see certain positions filled, outstanding positions filled at the National Health Laboratory Services. And they've also brought, the attention to personal protective equipment and talked about the inadequate supply of those PPEs.
So I suppose, Mbalenhle, in fact, I believe that we will then know what happens on Friday after the hearing has taken place tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. We will hear what's going to happen. Essentially, we understand that, this is part of an elaborate plan that was outlined during a media briefing last week, where the union essentially said that they would be embarking on lunchtime pickets, not only at the National Health Laboratory Services, but also include the national health workers at national hospitals around the country. This is all in an effort to bring attention and to get some of their demands met. And this is all in the lead up to the 3rd of September, where workers will be marching to places like the union buildings and Parliament in order to hand over a memorandum of demands. We know that the union has threatened to withdraw nurses, essential workers who are working in the front lines of the fight against COVID-19 come the 10th of September if government does not meet any of the demands that they've made. And essentially they will continue to picket outside those offices, outside healthcare facilities until that particular day. And yes, we do know about the stay away, which is on Friday. And essentially how that started is that yesterday was the 24th of September, where healthcare workers were urged to go to their employers and apply for leave for that take a day off day, which is said to be on Friday, essentially. But these are all events that are all leading up to one big day, which is the National Day of Action on the 3rd of September this year.
So just very quickly, Mbali, as you spent the day at the NHLS's offices since this morning, what sense did you get from the employees? Did you perhaps get a sense of disappointment that there's been this interdict sought by the employer? I can talk about a press release that I have in my possession that was released by the employer, and essentially they were rather disappointed with the fact that the union has gone ahead and gone on a strike and withdrawn workers from the laboratories, essentially saying that it's a bit premature for the union to do so, given that wage talks are still ongoing and given the financial position the company finds itself, and especially after it's been affected also by the pandemic. And essentially they've said that they cannot continue, they cannot give workers an 11% increase, but they can give them a 0% increase, because an 11% increase would be unsustainable going forward. And they've also mentioned that wage talks are still ongoing between the union, and that it is incorrect that wage talks have deadlocked. They have allowed the process to continue, but we heard the union representative talking about this particular bargaining council that they do participate in, saying that every year they have to always resort to withdrawing workers and taking to the streets in order to resolve some of the wage negotiations. And they were saying that there has to be something needs to be done in order to improve the bargaining process through that particular body, because they don't want to always and to be constantly going on into the streets and taking to the streets to have their demands met, or before their demands are met. They made other examples from other unions saying that when unions such as large unions such as NUMSA do go on strike, they don't go on strike every year, but when they do go on strike, they go on strike for a very valid reason. And they were saying that they keep going on a strike every year, and it is untenable for them. All right, Mbali, we thank you so much for that update. Our SABC News reporter there, Mbalenhle Mthethwa, who's been following the Nehawu story for us. This, of course, is indeed a developing story that we're keeping a very close eye on here on the channel.